back for Hartfield. What a volley! Scott Hartfield! He's been threatening that recently. And all the Burnley players run to the Darwin end. Oh, what a goal! What a goal from Robbie Blake! Burnley's first goal in the Premier League is something very, very special.
Wade Elliott has that change of pace and he's got away from Montgomery. It's the path of McCann and the follower finds the net. What a strike from Wade Elliott! A bolt from the Claret and Blue.
Oh goodness me! What a goal from Patterson! If that is to be the one that takes them to Wembley, you cannot argue with that. Pure quality.
Here goes Mike Conroy. Still time for a winner, maybe. John Francis! They came to York in their thousands. They're going home as champions.
I mean, if there's any justice in the world, Burnley would surely score from this corner. Swung right in there. Ball in there. Yeah! Michael Kennan! Oh, that's justice! That is justice at the Amex Stadium. Burnley are level and deserve to be.
Hello everyone and welcome along to the latest episode of the Turfcast podcast pre-game show with me, Joe Redmond, ahead of this midweek clash against Hull City in the Championship, obviously. A few things I need to touch on before we do get on to the Hull chat is obviously the embargo. It came out of nowhere, didn't it? And it's all a bit like, what the hell's going on? Like, what even is the point? But full credit to the club for the... I said full transparency on Twitter, but then a lot of people started saying, well, it's not really full transparency, isn't it? Because it's just saying that we're late, so who knows what's in the accounts. But I'm one of them that is quietly confident that everything will be sorted in a couple of weeks. But I guess we will see. If it is just late accounts, and I have no reason not to believe the club when they say that, then there should really be an issue. But I don't really... I know the AFL are trying to look like they're doing something, and they've done the same to Huddersfield as well today, or yesterday, whenever it was. But what's the point in a transfer embargo in March when the transfer window is shut and we're already top of the league and 99.99% going to win it anyway? But yeah, we'll see. And obviously an EFL transfer embargo isn't really going to affect us in the summer, barring an absolute miracle. Well, not miracle for us, but you know what I mean. So yeah, it's all a bit much of a muchness, I think. Bit of a non-story, hopefully. Bit of a non-story. It seems like it's a bit of a non-story at the minute, and it'll just sort of like go away when the accounts are submitted, unless there's some illegal activity in the accounts, of course. But there's nothing to suggest that. Just get that disclaimer in there if anyone from the club's watching. And Man City away this weekend as well. Obviously, 8,000 Burnley fans going. Got me tickets today. I'm looking forward to it. Those of you that follow my personal account on Twitter will know I'm taking my little lad to his first ever away game. I cannot wait. I think it might be a mistake taking him to that one because A, we'll probably get battered, and B, there's going to be 8,000 Burnley fans, and knowing Marlock, I'll be sat next to some young lads who've been on the beer all day because it's a day in Manchester, isn't it? It's a day in Manchester, so we'll see. Parker, if you're watching this in the future, I hope it went well. He's been on 2 games this season. Bristol City at home, when it was okay, but obviously because everyone who watches the podcast will know Simon, I was sat in the disabled end with him, thanks to Simon, and there's loads of space behind him and stuff, and he was just running around, minding his own business. And then Reading at home, when we scored in like the 100th minute to win it 2-1 or whatever it was, he was bawling his eyes out when that went in. So hopefully it's not bedlam on Saturday. But anyway, let's get chatting about the whole game. I've got a Hull fan waiting in the wings. It is Ant, and he is from the To Hull and Back podcast. How you doing, mate? Oh, Ant, are you there, buddy? There he is.
I am. I'm still here. Oh, yeah.
There he is. It went all dark then. I thought typical, just as I'm bringing you in. But yeah, obviously, talk to me about your season so far then, because you look at the league table and obviously we're in the WhatsApp group together. So I've seen a lot of stuff in there of how your season's gone and the way that you feel about it. But for someone outside looking in, you look at the league table, you just think, Hull are 15th. You know, they probably won't pose too much of a threat. But it's been kind of like your season's been in like a little bit up and down, hasn't it, due to injuries and a manager change?
Yeah, it's been a season of 2 halves, really. You know, we had a very, very loud and busy summer transfer window. I think, you know, we didn't really sign a lot of players domestically, which meant that we had a lot of players to try and bed into. Obviously, how physical and demanding the English league is, and you know, we were signing players that were already injured, so you set yourself up to fail in that sense. The manager at the time, Arveladze, finished last season strong. But, you know, where they're thinking, you know, this season he gets, you know, the players that he wants, maybe we'll go to, you know, kick on from what we did last season and with a better squad and more attacking options, it would be, you know, a lot more of a threat this season. And that wasn't the case at all. We started very well. I mean, I think we were first 4 or 5 games unbeaten, but the performances weren't great. You could tell something wasn't quite right. And then when we got injuries to a couple more key players like Tete and Aliar, it just, you know, our form flew off a cliff. We just... we were conceding 2 or 3 near enough every game. Had the worst defence in the country at one point, I think. You know, you were going into every weekend just thinking it's going to be a rinse and repeat from the week before. We're going to concede early in the first half, be chasing the rest of the game, and then concede another 2 in the second half, and it was miserable. Obviously, he lost his job prior to the Luton game on the Friday night, just after the international break, which was weird timing. And then we had Andy Dawson in interim charge, who sort of steadied the boat, brought some players back in from the dark. And then obviously we took our time and brought in Rosini, who obviously knows the club, knows the area, has played for us before, and probably our most successful period of our history. And he's regarded as, you know, one of the most most promising young managers in football. You know, he was very highly regarded at Derby, and he's shown in his small time here that he's done well. That he's got the ability to be a really good manager. You know, we've only lost 4 times since he's come in. We look far better defensively. We're very organised, very structured, and you know, our Achilles heel is putting the ball in the back of the net. But to be fair, you know, we had the worst defence in the country, so the fact that we've got, I think, the 3rd best since he's come in shows how good a job he's done.
Yep, fair enough. So what is, obviously you mentioned the early manager there. I always call him Shotta just because I can't seem to ever pronounce the last name. And obviously Rosani has come in as well. Now, what's the difference then between Hull earlier in the season and Hull now? Because I remember when you played at the Turf, obviously it was 1-1. Admittedly, it was a time before that we had clicked, but I remember coming away from that thinking that you'd played quite well. And we're kind of unlucky in the end not to win the match. So what's the difference between Hull then and Hull now?
We're hard to beat. You know, we basically were rollovers earlier on in the season, and now we're very, you know, we've gone from chaotic and disorganized to very hardworking and re-energized. You know, they throw their lives on the line. You know, we're blocking shots left, right, and centre. We have a clear identity of playing. You know, the players understand their roles, what they're doing. Whereas earlier on in the season, we were completely all over the shop, and it showed in the amount of goals we were conceding on a regular basis. So, yeah, at the moment, like I say, attacking wise, we could probably be better, but with the amount of players we've got coming back from injury and losing to injury, there's just no consistency in the starting 11. But the back 4 has been superb. Whoever comes into it, like Cyrus Christie and Jacob Greaves were the fullbacks at one point, and now we've got Callum Elder and Louis Coyle because of injury. And Jacob Greaves was probably our best defender, is struggling to get into the team because Sean McLaughlin's now sort of taken his place in the back 4, and he's been phenomenal alongside Jones. So it's more a case of now teams are really having to work hard to break us down, which obviously as fans it's great to see now because we're actually looking forward to games. And you know, you're thinking if you can keep yourself in this game and nick a goal, then you've always got a chance to take something from the game.
Yep, fair enough. What are you playing for now at the minute then? Because like I said, you're on 15 points. Sorry, you're in a lot more than 15 points. You're in 15th on 46 points, so you're not going to go down, which I guess is a bit of a relief. I mean, I never thought you would go down, but I'm sure some fans earlier in the season, when you were languishing down there a little bit, were probably looking over the shoulders. But it's not looking like you'll go down now, but probably a little bit too far from the playoffs. So is it a case of just seeing this season out now and hoping to push on next season and sneak into the playoffs?
Yeah, definitely. I think, you know, because of the kind of start we had in the transfer window we had, vast majority of the fan base probably allowed ourselves to get a bit overzealous with what we could do this season. I mean, our owner's been very loud and vocal about that he wants to be in the Premier League within 2 or 3 years. Realistically, he was never going to do it in the first year. But beginning of the season, if you'd have said to anybody, you know, that we'd have been in a safe mid-table position at one point, sort of flirting with the playoffs, but then fall off towards the end, every City fan would have been happy with that. You know, we were fighting relegation for the vast majority of last season. we were in League One 2 years ago. So to be in a position now where we're comfortably in mid-table and got sort of a good base to build on next season, I imagine the summer will be a bit of a squad trimming and getting in some players that Rosinia really wants to incorporate his play out from the back, high energy style that he wants to bring. So try and finish this season as high as we possibly can. Realistically, we're not going to get the top 6, but we're not going to go down either. So, maybe it's time to experiment, chuck a couple of young players in here and there, try out different formations, players in these positions, and just go for it, really, because you haven't got any pressure. There's nothing really, to lose. So maybe just play some free-flowing attacking football from the rest of the season and see what we can do.
Yep, fair enough. What's your feeling on your form at the minute? Because just looking at your last 6, it's a little bit up and down, isn't it? Because you've got a 1-1 draw at Coventry, which is a good result, a 2-0 home win against West Brom, which is a very good result. But then there's defeats to Bristol City and Norwich and 0-0 draws against Stoke and Preston. So it's a little bit up and down at the minute, isn't it? So do you feel like you're playing well, or you're not playing as well as you could at the minute?
Our tendency at the minute is to start games poorly and then grow into it. So I guess Rosinia's challenge at the minute is to find out how to incorporate that that style later on in the game from the beginning. We went on a long unbeaten run under Rosinia for a bit, and then we lost a couple of players to injury, and we had I think it was 3 or 4 games in a row where we didn't win, and we only scored something like 1 goal. And that kind of took us out the top 6 picture, and we lost too much ground. But since then, we've kind of looked a lot better. I think the problem was, like we said, every club's had injury problems this season, but us with our wide men this season, we've had to play central midfield players on the wing, like Regan Slater, who's a very underrated player, but he's definitely better in the middle, has been playing out wide, for example. And when you're looking back at how we're trying to struggle to score goals, it's probably because we're playing, that whole square peg in round hole kind of situation. And but at the moment, like I say, it's frustrating sometimes in an offensive sense because we can be so wasteful. The draw at Coventry, they were probably the better side for the first 45, but then the second half was it was basically a tennis match. It was end to end. And when we went 1-0 up, kind of out the blue, we had 2 really good opportunities to get through on goal and put the game to bed. And you're thinking 2-0 up, we're probably going to see that out. And we don't put them chances away, and then Coventry go up the other end and score. And really, that's been the story of our season, that we've just been so wasteful. But every team we play against will punish you, and we don't do that to teams. So we need to sort of incorporate that ruthless edge to our game, where mistakes from other teams or opportunities that we have, we're putting them away, rather than watching it end up in the back of our net instead.
Yep, fair enough. Any players that we should be watching out for? I remember earlier in the season being quite impressed with Tufan. Obviously, he got the goal at Turf Moor.
Yeah, Tufan's one of these players who, we were told from Watford fans that he was lazy and we weren't going to get much out of him work ethic wise. I think he's been proving them wrong this season. He scored 4 goals. I don't think he scored since the Sunderland game in December, but he's definitely shown a side to his game that people don't think he had. He's very creative, and he's definitely got an eye for a long ranger. Oscar Estepinian, obviously our top scorer, he's on 13 goals. Yeah. Seems to score in patches. He doesn't score consistently. He scores for like 4 or 5 games in a row and then doesn't score for another 8. But he's that kind of striker. But he scored against Coventry, so maybe now this is his run. So he's definitely one to keep an eye out. He's a poacher. He's not going to score a worldie. His Coventry one was okay, but most of his, 90% of his goals will be just tap-ins from the box. He's the right place, right time kind of guy. And then Pelkas, Greek international on the wing. He's a very good player. But at the moment, it's our centre-back pairing that are just phenomenal at the minute. Gyökeres, probably one of the best strikers, if not the best striker in the league at the minute. They managed to keep him quiet for 70 minutes, barring the time where he got into the box and actually set up a goal. But they kept him quiet for the vast majority of the game, and those two together have been really, really good this season. And new keeper, Caldalo, distribution-wise, helps us play out from the back a lot. He's got very good distribution in terms of passing it out to the team and seems to command his box a lot better, comes out and collects crosses. So the back 4 are definitely going to be in for a busy time. So I'll probably keep your eye out on them, the back 4 and the goalkeeper, because they're going to have to be the ones that are keeping Burnley out.
Yeah, they will be busy. Presumably the way that we play. Any big injuries or suspensions that you've got at the minute? I know you've had a season blighted by injuries.
Yeah, who hasn't been injured for us this season? Ben Tete has been one of our most frustrating figures this season because he's very good and we've just not seen anything of him. So he started the season really well. then got a long-term injury, then came back against Sheffield United and got sent off. So he was off again for another 3 games. And he came back into the team and he scored against West Brom. And we're thinking, here we go, he's got a run now. And then he gets injured against Coventry, hamstring, and he's out for 6 weeks. So that's been a frustrating one. We'll miss him and his hold-up play, especially against Burnley, where, we're not going to have the majority of the ball and we need an outlet. And then in terms of, we've just got Aliar and Pelkas back from injury, so they're not 100% match sharp, but they're sort of back in the side now. Other than that, there's no real major absentees. Cyrus Christie, who's our first choice right back usually, he's out. Very good attacking outlet on the right hand side, in terms of him being a fullback, especially. Got a few goals this season, 1 player of the month, and then got injured. But other than that, it's more or less just sort of squad players that are in and out the side. I think in terms of starting 11, we're actually quite close to where we want to be. Seri's come back, and Greaves is on the bench. He's not injured, so yeah, we should be okay.
Yep, interesting. Thoughts on Burnley then? I always like to get the opposition fans' thoughts on Burnley, especially this season, not because we're doing so well, because of how much we've changed on last season. Look at a lot of people will just say, "Oh, it's easy to win the league when you've spent X, Y, and Z amount of money." But when you look at some of the teams that have spent big in the past, it doesn't always work. And I think Vincent Kompany's obviously done a very good job to get us playing in a certain way and a completely opposite way. It was so embedded into us for 9 years under Dyche. But what are your thoughts on Burnley, what they're doing this season?
Yeah, I think it's one of those rare examples where a total shift in club philosophy has worked like immediately. I mean, like you say, you've been able to lure in some really good players, but other teams are in the same position as you in terms of parachute money and being able to lure quality players in for this league, like your Norwiches and your Watfords, and they're not doing as good. So, you've got to give credit to Vincent Kompany, who's not got much managerial experience. I think was he only at Anderlecht before this?
Anderlecht, yeah.
Yeah, so, he's coming into the league and he's basically adopting the Guardiola model in the Championship. And like you say, to go from what was a Sean Dyche, your old traditional 4-4-2, be tough to beat, focus on your set pieces, direct football kind of, to your more tiki-taka, dominate possession and just create mounts of chances. You have to give him credit. I mean, you're flying. 13 points clear at the top.
13 points clear of second, 17 points clear of third.
There you go. So you essentially already won the title, and you've got 10 games left. So
yeah,
you can't sit here and criticize anything that he's done. And I mean, I think the fans that complain about the spending don't realise that other teams will have spent similar, and in terms of haven't you actually not spent that much in terms of net spend? I think
in terms of net spend, we're actually in profit.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So it's a good model, isn't it? And like you say, if it can work in the Premier League and you're playing at the top flight with a more attractive style of football, it's going to be more entertaining for the fans. Then you're going to be onto a real winner.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, isn't it? How are we going to adapt next year from having the ball 95% in most of the games, 95% of the time, to just not having the ball that much? It's going to be interesting to see how we get on next season. Let's focus on the actual game itself then. You mentioned earlier, like, you set up in a certain way where you're hard to beat and your defenders at the minute and your goalkeeper's doing very, very well. A few weeks ago, we were frustrated at Blackpool because they just simply parked the bus and refused to play any type of football whatsoever. Do you think you'll do something like that, or do you think you'll defend well but still try and get forward?
No, we'll still try and get forward. Rosini has been very vocal in the fact that there's a style of player that he really wants to incorporate, and whether or not this squad of players that he currently has, whether that be fitness levels or players he's got available, can achieve that is another story. But he's certainly trying to get that footprint already on the squad ready for next season. And probably evaluating who can and cannot adapt to it for next season. Because I mean, with a full preseason, we might be a different team next year. Because he wants to be high energy, press high, that kind of style. But I think fitness-wise, from the Shotter era, we weren't really up to scratch in that sense of things. So no, we will be. We've got sort of a system off the ball and a system on the ball. So when Burnley will predict probably about 70-80% of the ball, we will probably go into a 4 with 5 in midfield kind of approach. The 2 wide men will drop back in to help support, which is going to be very important against Burnley. But as soon as we get the ball, we're going to be looking to play it. He really wants. He's very, very, very stubborn with his play out the back system. A lot of fans aren't a fan. It's weird. It's very divisive, isn't it? Play out from the back football. Because if it's doing well like you guys and Man City, I imagine, they kind of really can't complain. But with us, because we've not quite, got those heights or the caliber of player to do it, it can be sort of moaned at. But, he's going to do it. And he's told us he's going to keep doing it. The players are going to have to learn. They have got better at it. I'm confident with the ball at the feet at the back now. We've got ball playing centre halves that can do it. We've got wingers, fullbacks that like to push up. So we will definitely try and hit you on the counter, but that's where we're better. We aren't very good at having the majority of the ball and trying to break the teams down. We're a lot better when we're breaking with pace and in numbers. So, this is the kind of game. I mean, I always used to deliberate not going to the Burnley game on the calendar because we always lost 1-0 and played shocking. But this is two completely different versions of our teams now, and it would be really interesting to see how Rosenior approaches this in terms of defending it, because I don't think he'll park the bus. I think we'll just approach it like we have every other game for the last 19, 20 games.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that as well about that style of play being divisive. And if you're doing well like Burnley or Man City, then you would expect that most fans would be on board. It's not the case. A lot of fans still criticise the goalkeeper when he's playing. But yeah, it's a bit of a sort of a, what's it called, like a civil war on the Burnley hashtag at the minute. Like,
it is with us every week. I mean, you have like maybe one or two times where a pass is misplaced and it puts you under pressure, and then that's it. They jump on that like flies. But for 89 minutes of the game, it's worked fine. So there's been no issue with it. But like Rosenior said, we're going to make mistakes in this style. He's well aware of that. But once the squad cracks that style, like you guys have, then you're going to have games where you literally hold the ball for so long that the other team have no offensive threat. I mean, Burnley are literally the blueprint for it this season, where you have so much of the ball and create so many chances that even if you put 10% of your shots in the goal, you scored 3. So it's a style of player that's high risk, high reward. But once you crack it, like we say, like the Man Cities and Barcelonas, and I mean Burnley in the same sentence as those two is a bit crazy. But
I enjoyed that. I did enjoy that sentence.
Yeah. Obviously, those teams that play that style of football, then. It's to be fair, I mean that the old 4-4-2 direct style would have been divisive too. A lot of people would have wanted, a more attractive style. So it's always going to be contentious.
Yeah, predictions then. How do you think this game's going to go in terms of scoreline, in terms of layout? How do you think it's going to go?
You know what? I'm actually looking forward to it. I think if we had something on the line, I'd be fearful. I mean, there is still a little reservation in the back of my mind that this will be the first game that we really get a thump in under Rosenior, because we've not had it under him yet. Norwich was pretty bad, but that was 3-1. Where this, I think, this is in danger. If we concede early, it could be a really bad day. But we are usually better against the sides we don't expect to be, and like I say, it suits us more when we're playing on the counter. So I think it'll be a close game. I think Burnley will have far too much for us in the end. But I'd like to see us give it a good go. And I'm going to say, I'm not going to go too negative with 3. I'll say 2-1 Burnley.
Yeah, fair enough. I'll definitely take that, obviously. I think same as you. I think it's going to be a close one because of how good you are defensively and how tight you can be. But I do think ultimately, if we keep turning the screw and we keep the pressure up on you, I think eventually we'll have enough. That's the problem with Blackpool. We just didn't really, we weren't moving the ball quick enough as well as we can do. So if we fall into that trap, you might get something, because Blackpool frustrated us, and you're a better side than Blackpool. So if they can do it, you can definitely do it. But I do think we'll have too much, because there's been not many games this season where we did play like we did at Blackpool, and even then we could have still won it. Their goalkeeper got the man of the match, but we just weren't moving the ball quick enough, and it was quite frustrating. But yeah, I was going to go 2-0 Burnley, I'd take 1-0 right now. 3 points is 3 points, and it's another step closer to the title, which could be wrapped up. I think someone said someone worked it out. It can be done as early as April 1st, but that's if everything goes our way, which it probably won't do. But if it gets wrapped up against Middlesbrough or Sheffield United, which we play over Easter, I think that's a good statement, isn't it, against one of the teams that was supposed to be chasing you, to then wrap it up there and then. But it doesn't matter. It's obviously happening at some point, isn't it? Not to sound big-headed, but it's just how it is at the minute. Thanks for coming on the show, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Good chat. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. No,
do you want to let everyone know where they can find you and your podcast and all your socials and things like that?
Yeah, so we're on our main source is Twitter at @Hull_and_back. That's our main source of social media. But we're on Facebook as well. You can find us on audio. Our main episodes are audio on all your usual audio providers like Spotify, Apple, ones like that. and we do video as well. So you can find us on YouTube. We do tend to do opposition previews too. But schedule-wise, it's been a bit tough the last few weeks. So we've not done many. We did one for Coventry, but we had one for Burnley. Yeah. So, but yeah, we're hoping to launch a website next season too with written content. So to become a bit more than just a podcast, we do a bit, content of all kinds. So yeah, keep an eye out for us. And anybody who wants to follow or subscribe, feel free to do so.
Yeah, definitely. Please go and check out Anthony's his podcast. Interesting you mentioned website. I've seen the stuff you've been putting in the group. Obviously, I'm aware of the fact that you're trying to get a website going. It's something I've looked at over the last few months. So again, if you're watching this and you want to help out, give us a shout. And like I've said already, thank you for coming on. It's been a pleasure. Good luck for the rest of the season and next season, because I think next season is going to be the one where you're looking forward to most now and try and push on and maybe sneak into the playoffs, depending on who you bring in the summer. But it's been a pleasure chatting to you, mate, and good luck for the rest of the season.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. Good luck in the Premier League.
Thank you.